Oh, and Elokar, your mother and I are now courting. You want to start growing accustomed to that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zareth Prevails. We're going to talk about Omicrons today and the rankings. We're going to rank all of them, and I have a fancy new graphic to show you guys. I'm even going to show you the old one so you guys can, so I can force you guys to feel appreciative of the new one. Now, I mean, it's not like that fancy, but let me just show you guys what we're working with. So, I mean, you guys can obviously let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to discuss all of these, at least a lot of them, and we'll figure out what my criteria is. We'll talk about the order of priorities, all of this stuff. But if you want this actual infographic, guys, all you've got to do, it's free. I mean, just join the Discord server. It's linked in the video description. Go hang out in the Discord, guys. And if you go to the one of the bottom channels, there should be a channel called Infographics. This should be there. If it's not, you can let me know in the comments. Maybe this is just my quick and easy way to get a bunch of engagement on this video by everyone complaining about it not appearing in my Discord server. But I wouldn't bet on that happening, guys. We'll see what happens. But one way or another, we're going to talk about Omicrons, guys. There's a lot of Omicrons, a lot of new ones, and there keeps being more nuance to all of this stuff, and it's worth discussing, worth re-ranking these things, because we've got a plan. This is a really scarce resource, but there's a lot of them that we could apply if we wanted to. So let's get to it, shall we, folks? That's not where we needed to be. We're in the game. Madness. We shouldn't have been in the game. All right, folks. So here's the first part. We've got Grand Arena here. And so S tier is the top level tier, the top tier. Okay, so a couple different criteria for me ranking these things. First off, accessibility, early game and late game, and also how impactful they already are. So like Qui-Gon Jinn, maybe not the most powerful, but you have access to him early on in the game, and one of the most common squads that you're going to want in the game to farm is going to be the Padme squad with Anakin and Snips and everyone, and generally Qui-Gon is going to find some fertile ground with those characters. So Qui-Gon makes the cut, even if he's not as good as, say, like Iden Versio or Wampa. He's just way more accessible because most people in the early game are not going to have access to Wampa. They're just not, or Iden Versio. Maybe they could farm Iden, but all the other like pretty inconsequential troopers, like you'd be foolish to be working on those before you work on other things. So Zam, she just impacts the entire squad so much. I mean, she gives all the different stat boosts, all the bounty hunters. She doesn't. She's not on every single team, and in 3v3 she's a little bit diminished. But in 5v5, I mean, come on. I mean, she gives you another 70 plus speed for your already really fast bounty hunters. I mean, she's very, very good, guys. She's a lot of fun. And in 3v3, she's also part of some really good squads as well. She's just not quite as dominant. Starkiller is, if you have him, he is amazing. He is someone you absolutely want to... I mean, you need his unique. The specials, you can see, are in the B level. Not quite as good, but still very, very good. First Order TIE Pilot, I'm excited for him. He may end up in the S level. I'm not sure. I think he has potential to maybe take on a Galactic Legend, though I don't really know yet. It's in 5v5, that could happen. 3v3, not quite enough push, but in 5v5, it could happen. We haven't seen him in 5v5 yet, and there are a lot of really creative people out there. I think with 5 characters there that he's impacting, though, because he's unique, impacts the whole squad, I think it may end up being really good. We'll just have to wait and see, but I think right now, tentatively, an A is pretty good. In 3v3, he still was taking out Starkiller teams a lot. He's still taking out really good squads. He's just not quite as impactful. Iden Versio is one I don't know. I feel like she could either be an S or in B. Ironically, I mean A is fine, but here's the thing: if you can Wampa her in 5v5, you can Wampa her in 3v3, and you can take her out with a couple other squads. And then once you run out of squads to throw at her, you're just done. She'll be there forever. Like, they used to be the case for Geos. Geonosians used to be the bane of my existence. I used to hate them so much because if you didn't have the right team to take them out, which they were easy to take out if you had the right team, but if you didn't have the right team, you couldn't zerg them down. You could not beat them. And Iden Versio's the same. Like, if you don't have the right team to beat them, you're just stuck. You're just screwed. You're effed in the proverbial A, which is why she's in the A spot. It's a very, very difficult team to remove if you don't have the right tools. And she just hits like a truck. Really good Omicron for GAC, of course. I mean, she's really good without the Omicron, to be honest. But with it, I would say, A is pretty good. B would be underselling a little bit. Just depends on where you're at in the game. Wampa, if it was just 3v3 rankings, Wampa would absolutely make the very top of he'd be an S tier. He'd be in like S plus tier because he kills something every single time for max banners. Like, you can't Wampa proof a board in 3v3, at least not without also making your own offense like just ridiculously awful. So, I mean, really good, really in 3v3. 5v5, he's really good up to a certain point, and now, I mean, now it's the popular thing. Like, I can make a Wampa-proof board in 5v5. That's not too difficult. So, you've got to, he's good at cleanup, he's good at opportunistic things when people try to get too fancy and you're like, okay, so you accounted for all these other like more common counters, but now you opened yourself up for Wampa. Like, that's kind of how it works. So I like Wampa, obviously, but he can in 5v5 he's not quite as cool. He's not quite as cool in 5s, unfortunately, guys. So on this B level, we're going to spend a little less time on each of these ones. Obviously, we're trying to discuss so many Omicrons, we can't go in detail. I think the one that's the biggest question mark in my mind is Admiral Radis. Adrad, as people have been calling him. He looks like... here's the thing. Okay, so he gets a bunch of stats. I get that. He gets a ton of stats for his team, and that's, that's great. That's cool. Like, every time the thing expires, then they get all these cool buffs, and that's fine. But you know who is buffing? He's buffing Rogue Squadron, her Rogue One, whatever, Rogue something, and that's just not good. Like, you're working with Rogue One, they don't do damage. You can have Relic 7 on all of them, they just don't do much. So you're buffing them, and it's that old thing that, I mean, I've mentioned it the other day, but it's like the people who complain about double drops, right? They say like, oh, well, if you don't ever drop anything, you get 0. Like, if you get double drops, 2 times 0 is still 0. And that's the same with the damage that Rogue One does. It's like, if you do 0 damage, then are all those buffs actually doing anything? So, the Omicron seems okay. It seems like it has potential. And I've actually seen in 5v5, he can, as an off shot, like a really, really small percent chance, he can actually beat Jedi Master Kenobi. Now, is it viable or consistent? No, not at all. But it does look like it has some promise. So he may get promoted next time I do these rankings. I'm not sure. But right now, he's a B. He's probably worth getting if you're Grand Arena only. But I'm saving mine for Malgus when he comes out. Admiral Akbar is actually a little bit higher than Leia, even though they're on basically the same team. And the reason for that, folks, is we have he can actually go with, like, he can lead a Commander Luke team. He can do a lot of interesting things and make the team work even if you don't have the Leia Omicron. Now, is it going to be amazing? I don't really think so, but I mean, he's B level, I think, like barely B level, but he can be okay. I recently put it on him on my main account as well, so we'll see how that goes in 5v5. I'm interested. The 2 Starkiller ones, they're very situational, guys, and you don't need them to be able to function. The Tusken one, I mean, it's 3v3, and so they can do some really interesting things in 3v3, but you're only using them once, I mean, you're using them, now you're going to use them 9 times every 2 seasons. So, I mean, just barely, like, almost the same level as using Territory War Omicrons. Like, in terms of how many times you get to use the Omicron, it's about the same. Like, but it's only half of what you get to use the Omicron for in the rest of them, so I don't know. Dash Rendar is the one that is maybe the most sad for me. I think that if he's more consistent in 3v3 and taking out Jedi Master Luke, he probably gets promoted by 1. But so far, I don't think he quite does that. And in 5v5, like, now there's a lot of counters for him. He does make kind of an annoying presence, but I don't know. B is probably... I feel like he's like a B+, honestly. I really do like his Omicron. I just... in the face of all these other cool Omicrons, it's just probably not quite as good. So, keep in mind, folks, so this but why though category, this is like, okay, I've seen some amazing results with Krennic. Believe it or not, I've seen some people who just like get hold after hold with him, and it's like, well, maybe they're facing weaker opponents or whatever, but he can do some okay stuff, and in 3v3 he has a lot of promise and potential, but you really need a plan surrounding him. Like, if you're going to put an Omicron on him, you need to make sure you have the right infrastructure. And a lot of times, the right infrastructure is going to undermine you. Like, if you're putting him with an Iden team, for instance, or sorry, not with Iden, but with the Death Trooper team, then why isn't Death Trooper with Iden? A lot of times it makes way more sense for Death Trooper to be there. And if he's not with Iden, then is Iden actually going to win anything? Like, I didn't know if that's a good idea at all, guys. So, not really sure. Same with Ewoks. Like, if you have all the relics and everything on the Ewoks, you want to put a bunch of speed on Paploo, all of that, great idea. But otherwise, don't put an Omicron on there. I made the mistake on my alternate account of doing that, and it doesn't really do much good if all of your Ewoks are only gear 11 or 12. Just really not worth it. They have to be relicked. Same with Princess Leia. If you don't have a good Admiral Akbar team to put her on, she has to have a specific plan. I've seen her on other good teams in 5v5, even at the top level, but you need to have a specific plan. Same with Talon. If she's not going to go with Traya exclusively and take out something like all the ads on the Lord Vader teams, for instance, probably not worth it. Finally, we have F tier, F minus tier, which is Rose exclusively on this because she's a terrible character, and her character in-game is also not very good. So, let's talk about these Territory War Omicrons real quick, folks. So, on the top level, we have Scion of Jango and Juhani and Mara Jade. Juhani and Mara Jade kind of have to go as a tandem, folks. They are really good, but I mean, they require, in Territory Wars, I just faced it on both of my accounts. Holy cow, that duo is so ridiculous on a Starkiller team. So, it's pretty niche. I mean, like, it has to be pretty high level that you're going to be even facing this. But if you have Starkiller and you have everyone up to, relics and stuff, Juhani and Mara Jade, both, you have to have both of the Omicron, so it's fairly expensive. But that requires a Galactic Legend, and not just any Galactic Legend. Like, I saw them rip apart so many teams, guys. Very, very impressive combo. And, the combination of being able to go first with Mara Jade and then Juhani basically just pretending like she's the Starkiller unique Omi is just a really, really powerful thing. Scion of Jango, I mean, as much as I like to give him crap for not being good, I mean, in GAC he just isn't. He's not impressive. He's non-impressive, which is a sad state to be in, considering he required so much effort to get and to farm in Conquest, but he's just not that impressive, unfortunately, guys, except in Territory Wars. If you put his leadership Zeta on, or Omicron on, then suddenly he makes bounty hunters just totally dismantle most Lord Vader teams. Now, the Lord Vader teams can struggle a little bit you can struggle against Lord Vader teams depending on if they have a really fast Thrawn, etc., but he is... it is still one of the very best Territory War Omicrons anyways. Finally, well, maybe not finally, I don't know. The other two on Scion of Jango, they're great. They're fine, they're good. You want the unique before you get the special, but they're both pretty good. And, I mean, honestly, you could almost make the argument that Mace and Phasma are both A or S level as well, S tier. But, I mean... someone has to be here, right? I mean, Mace, here's the thing. Mace is transformative for that Jedi Master Kenobi team. I almost think that once we get new Galactic Legends, Mace is going to be a better candidate for S tier, because he's going to make a Jedi Master Kenobi team which is going to suddenly not be the best Galactic Legend. He's going to make that team like better against the new hotness, the new cool Galactic Legends. But right now it's like, okay, Jedi Master Kenobi's great, but like he's already great. You don't need a boost, really. Like he's great. It's wonderful. His Omicron is crazy good, but does he really need that much of a boost? I don't really know. Like otherwise, what are you doing with him? Phasma is another one. It's kind of surprising. Like you can use dregs from the First Order squad. You can still have a good Supreme Leader Kylo team. Use Phasma to kill Galactic Legends in Territory Wars. If you put her on defense, you just get her destroyed by Commander Luke. But if you keep her for offense, it does a lot of work. I've been very, very impressed by the footage that I've seen of Captain Phasma. Very, very cool stuff in 3v3 or in 5v5. I don't know why I mentioned that, because 3v3 Territory Wars sounds like an abomination needs to be killed by fire, killed with fire. Okay, so I've seen some good footage of Embo. It's just like, here's the thing about Territory Wars, guys. Territory Wars, the meta is just so, I don't know, stagnant isn't quite the word, but it's so stacked, at least at the top level that where I am for both of my accounts, where it's like there's not much wiggle room for other like creative teams. A lot of times it's just like, all right, the GLs and then a few other important teams, and Embo kind of just like, I've seen him do okay things, but it's like, does he really does he have a place in that top meta? And the thing is, if you're going to put some Omicrons on characters at the lowest level, then Embo is going to be like, Embo is going to like, you're gonna outgrow Embo eventually, right? Or you know, especially if you put him on like these lower tier like Chief Nebbit and Sidious and Jin. It's like, okay, you might have the right team now, but eventually you're going to outgrow that. Your guild is going to be too strong, and you're going to have wasted your Omicron. And so, I mean, I think the top 7 are a pretty safe bet in Territory Wars, and then it gets a little bit sketchy. Now, the one thing that I'm really interested in is Sortie is going to start making her appearance in Territory Wars quite a bit, potentially, and T3 with that Omicron looks really, really good with Sortie. I'm interested to see. I haven't seen anything in that regard. Maybe that T3 Omicron isn't going to be that great. I wish we had T3 and that T3 Omicron in GAC. That would have been a lot more fun for me, at least, folks. So finally, these trash tier. I don't know where to put Inquisition. Like, we don't have Grand Inquisitor yet. We don't know. Like, so far they seem like a huge, ridiculous waste of effort on CG's part, but that could just be because we don't know what the final kit is on the Grand Inquisitor. Not really sure. And then Farm Boy Luke is so... I really wanted him to have a GAC one to go with the Admiral Akbar team, because he can do some really interesting things already without an Omicron. But in GAC, or in Territory Wars, it's like, well, maybe we just shouldn't ever talk about that one again, ever. And Hera, I mean, okay, so it's not bad in the context of, like, it looks like a good Omicron, right? Like, it does some interesting things, but it's on Phoenix. It's on Phoenix. And, I mean, that should be enough, right? Like, it's on Phoenix. Not good. Let's not talk about it further. Alright, guys. Finally, we have the PvE ones here on the right-hand side. So, the top tier, the Finn one just came out, and I have to say, I'm very impressed with, like, in theory, it looks really cool and fun. I mean... the problem being, guys, right now, we have all the tools that we need. People can farm all the different things that they need without using any Omicrons. So the Finn one, whereas it looks really powerful, I'm guessing that if they do eventually have another territory battle that's released, he's going to be really good, and people are going to be snapping that one up like hotcakes, depending on if you like hotcakes or not. But otherwise, it looks pretty good. Looks decent. I mean, I would love to try it. Is it worth an Omicron, though? I mean, no. You're going to hurt your guild by not putting one on Territory War, or you're going to hurt yourself in GAC by not adding one. But it looks good though, guys. In theory, I mean, it is. If you want a beefy text to read, I mean, you should read his. All right, Rolo. So the one thing about Rolo is here, guys. She is actually, it's very good for lower guilds because she directly replaces Commander Luke in the lineup. So Commander Luke required for a ton of platooning, and for smaller guilds who don't have the versatility the bigger guilds have, then that can really hurt you. You want to go full platoons, but then you can't win anything. But if you put Commander Luke in platoons, if you have the Rolo Omicron, then you're going to be able to beat all the things that CLS would allow you to anyways. And so it's a win for lower level guilds. It's pretty cool. Kyle Katarn, it's also very strong, guys. This one's very strong. The problem being, if you have a Kyle Katarn Omicron, then it's for your Rebel Fighters team, and that's Mon Mothma, etc. And the problem with that being, I think that Kyle Katarn, if you have a good Mon Mothma team, if you're at the stage where you can farm Kyle Katarn up to the point that he's good, you know, with relics and everything, and you have a good Rebel Fighters team, probably you have a high enough GP and you're in a big enough guild that you don't really need him in order to get a lot of waves. Like, it's just not quite as good because it implies you're a certain point in the game, a lot like an advancement in the game, and it means that you don't necessarily need to boost yourself, you know, like your own waves via Rebel Fighters. Like, once you get to that certain level, Rebel Fighters are kind of like, well, they're cool, but they just take forever, and I don't really want to do that. So I don't know, it's good. I'm assuming that if we ever get another territory battle, it'll be good, but otherwise, not so much. And then we have, okay, so we have Sortie here, which is a conquest one, and man, okay, so it looks okay, I guess, on some levels, but what you have to realize is conquest is more, it's more like, it's seasonally driven, and you need to have multiple teams. You can't just spam one team throughout conquest and hope to get wins. I mean, not to mention, I don't think it's going to be that impactful in certain circumstances anyways, and so I don't know, it's this really awkward thing of like, if you put it on Sortie, like, are you gonna get guaranteed red crate? No. Like, is it gonna get anyone? It's gonna move the needle for you, really? I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We'll have to see this next conquest if people are using it to good effect. But it really doesn't look that convincing to me, especially because you have to use so many other teams in order to be successful in conquest. And it's like, well, what does Sortie really have to offer in that context? Like, what does she fulfill any of the feats that you have to get, or, you know, any of the things you have to accomplish in conquest, or does she just like get a 3-star node for you sometimes? I mean, you just have to think about that. IPD, I mean, so the novelty of him exploding multiple times and still living is strong. Like that's a really fun idea. Otherwise, I would love to use IPD more. I wish that they would update his rules, though. The massive damage isn't that massive anymore. It's like, oh, like I literally have like characters who have 500,000 effective health, and he's doing 1/5 of that. It's pathetic. It's ridiculous. And I mean, him and Darth or Savage Opress, both of them should really, really get updated because it's stupid. Finally, we have Karth, and I don't know what you're doing. If you put the Omicron on Karth, guys, it's probably a misclick. You're probably drunk. You're probably just trying to atone for some sins, and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna self-flagellate and hurt myself by adding Karth's Omicron, because it is awful, especially because his territory battles, the teams he would ideally want to have are going to be light side and dark side both, which territory battles do not actually accommodate. Now, I may change my tune if we get an Old Republic territory battle at some point that then that accommodates that for you, such as like in Hoth, for instance, on the Hoth territory battle, you can use bounty hunters. Like, there's 1 or 2 missions that require bounty hunters where you can use both light side and dark side bounty hunters. Now, that's not relevant to the majority of us, but that is the case in Hoth, and that means that sets the precedent that they could actually do it again. It's like, okay, send, an Old Republic team, and then Karth, it might end up being okay, but right now, it's just hot garbage. It's the worst. It's worse than roses. Like, it is so worthless, useless, just not worth even considering anything more. So, anyways, folks, that's the list. I'm going to let you guys go. Let me know if you guys like this format, if you prefer me just clicking around and looking at the actual kits, or whatever. If you like the infographic, if you like, what do you guys like? I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button and all of that as well, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.